Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for today's video, I'm going to be going over all of my 5-star predictions. These are all of the books that I'm either fairly confident or at least hopeful that I'm going to love and give 5 stars to. And in no way, shape, or form is my star rating system like analytical at all. It's all very like emotional and just how I feel after I read the book. So I can give a book 5 stars depending on a lot of different factors. It depends on how addicted to the book I get, how fast I want to read it, how much I love the characters, how much I'm interested in what's actually happening, and then a big part of it for me is the ending. If you land the ending, that's great. I used to be pretty stingy about giving books 5 stars in the past. I used to give out a lot of like 4 and 4.5 stars. But now lately I'm feeling pretty generous, and I've been giving a lot of the books I've been reading in the past, I don't know, 1 or 2 years 5 stars. And so I'm very hopeful with a lot of these books that I'm going to really love them and ultimately end up giving them 5 stars. But anyway, enough of the preamble. Let's jump right into it. For the most part, I tried to pick books by authors that are new to me because it's not really fair to like pick a George R. R. Martin or a Stephen King or an Agatha Christie and predict that I'll give it 5 stars because I already know the author. But having said that, I do have a few books that I'll mention quickly at the beginning that I've read at least one book by the author, but that's it. And one of the books is the sequel to one of my favorite fantasy books I've read, and that would be Kings of the Wild. I gave this book 5 stars, and I've yet to read the sequel, Bloody Rose, and I very much think I'll give this book 5 stars. If it's anything like Kings of the Wild, and I'm sure it will be, 5 stars. More than likely. Another one is the sequel to Sinlin Ascends. I actually gave this book 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite 5-star material for me. It was still really good. But I really hope that the sequel, Arm of the Sphinx, is slightly better and I can give it the full 5-star treatment. Another book is the sequel to one of my all-time favorite fantasy books, City of Stairs. And I will be shocked if I don't give City of Blades and the sequel, or the last book in the series, City of Miracles, 5 stars. I'm pretty sure the whole trilogy is going to get 5 stars, and it'll end up being one of my all-time favorite trilogies. Speaking of Robert Jackson Bennett, he has another series that I have yet to read, and the first book in that is called Foundryside. And just from what I've heard about this, it sounds a lot different in tone, at least, than City of Stairs, but it's got pretty similar concepts in that you've got people finding out old lost information, you've got a pretty cool magic system, and it's supposed to have pretty fun characters in it too. So I highly anticipate this being 5 stars as well. And since all of those books that I just mentioned were fantasy books, I might as well go through some of the rest of the fantasy books. The first one I'll mention is The Goblin Emperor, which is a standalone fantasy, which is great because I really need to read more standalone fantasy. I haven't read too many at this point. Most of the fantasy books that I end up reading are a part of a series, either trilogies or longer, and a lot of the times, you know, I'll end up reading the first book and then I won't even get to the rest of the series, which means I have a whole backlog of series that I need to finish. But with this book, hopefully it will just contain a self-contained story, and hopefully I'll love it, and hopefully I'll give it 5 stars. Speaking of starting a lot of series, I also have The Bone Shard Daughter, which luckily, even though this is a first book in an ongoing series, this is a debut book, and I'm pretty sure that the second book either isn't out yet or it's going to be out soon. Either way, I'm very excited for this book because it is a fantasy book, but I hear that it has elements of different genres, including a little bit of sci-fi and horror elements. So I'm very excited to get to this one. Another fantasy book that I'm very interested to read, that I'm very hopeful I will give 5 stars to, is The Queen of Blood. And this is the first book in the Queen of Rinthia trilogy. Luckily for me, this is only the start of a trilogy, and it's completed, and all of the books are relatively short. So if I do love this book and give it 5 stars, I can quickly move on to the rest of the series, and hopefully all of the series will be 5 stars. And I just think that the setting of this book sounds incredibly interesting and very different from anything else that I've read in the genre. It's supposed to be where this city takes place in like the treetops of this forest, and I think that sounds really cool. This next book I have to mention is a chunky book, and not only that, it's supposed to be part of a 6-book series, and it's the first book, obviously, and that would be Sephiroth's Hand. It is a chunky book. I actually started this book a long time ago on Kindle. I'm actually not a huge fan of reading ebooks, so I read a little bit of it and got kind of tired of reading it that way, and the paperback was always super expensive, so I never actually bought it and finished the story. But now I have a copy, and from what I read, it was really good, so I do very much anticipate this being 5 stars. And like I've said, I've read a good chunk of this book before, and from what I remember, the characters were all very interesting. The dual perspective of the main characters were both great, and just the setting and the overall like magic system and all of the crazy stuff that happens, it's all good. So like I said, hopefully it's 5 stars, because that's the point of the video. And I've also got a couple sci-fi books here, and the first one I'll talk about is A Memory Called Empire. The main reason why I'm predicting I give this book 5 stars is because I've heard a lot of comparisons to City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. And pretty much people say, like, if you like one of these books, you'll probably like the other. And this is one of my all-time favorite fantasy books, so, that, you know, put it together. And the last sci-fi book I have to talk about is Exhalation, and this is a science fiction short story collection. I'm actually a huge fan of short story collections, science fiction short story collections in particular, because I'm a huge fan of Ray Bradbury and his short stories and George R.R. Martin's short stories. So this will probably be more of a modern science fiction short story collection, which I'm very interested in, and I really hope that I love this. The next book I have to talk about is a horror book, and it's called The Perfect Child. And I've heard this book compared to one of my all-time favorite horror books, Baby Teeth. So if it's anything like Baby Teeth, I know I'm going to love it, because Baby Teeth is about a sociopathic, psychopathic kid, young girl, who basically terrorizes her mom. And that's essentially what I think this book is about, or at least what I think it's about. If it's even close to that, I know I'm going to love it. The next book here is a mystery thriller book called The Last Mrs. Parrish. And usually with mysteries and thrillers, it's a toss-up, because it all depends on how good the ending is, it depends on how good the twist is, and it depends on how well I enjoy the characters, or at least the main character. And it's hard because you like to go into, or at least I do, I like to go into mystery thrillers not knowing anything about the book. So I haven't looked up exactly what this book is about. I only know that people love it. So I'm going into it blind, and it's hard to predict something like that. So even though I'm saying, or I'm predicting 5 stars, it could really go either way. It could be 5 stars, or it could be meh, 3 stars, or who knows, I might even DNF it. I don't know. And I feel very similarly to this next book and the last book in this video, Arsenic and Adobo, which is a Book of the Month Club pick. This is supposed to be a very fun, mystery thriller book. I think from what I remember reading about it, it's supposed to be this woman opens up a restaurant and somehow her ex-boyfriend gets poisoned and she's the main culprit. I think that's what it's about, and if that's correct, this sounds amazing and it sounds hilarious. But like I said, with mystery thrillers, you never really know. And like I said, with mysteries and thrillers, it all depends on how good the ending is and if there's a good twist or not, or if the characters are great. You just never know. But I have high hopes, and hopefully I give this book 5 stars. Alright, so that's all the books I have to talk about in this video. Did I mention any of your favorite books? Have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Were you kind of mad about them? What are some of your 5-star predictions? Books that you feel that you're going to love when you read them. Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.